The saying goes that the tables can turn around, and for me, that lesson came like a thunderclap on a clear day. Several years ago, there was a man in our neighborhood named Richard. His wife had just given birth to a beautiful baby boy, and they were in dire need of N9,000 to discharge the baby from the hospital. I remember sitting with him on the porch of his small house, sipping on some tea, and trying to offer some advice. "Why don't you start saving, Richard?" I suggested, trying to be helpful. "Even if you put away just N1,000 every month, by the time the baby arrives, you'll have enough to cover the hospital expenses." Richard looked at me with a mixture of frustration and resignation. "I wish it were that easy," he said. "But with the bills piling up and the daily expenses, it's hard to save anything at all." I shrugged it off, thinking he was making excuses. Little did I know that life had a way of humbling us all. Fast forward a few years, and my own circumstances had taken a drastic turn. My once stable source of income had dwindled, and my expenses had skyrocketed due to unforeseen circumstances. My wife and I had been blessed with a child, and just like Richard, we found ourselves in need of N12,000 to discharge our baby from the hospital. As I stood there in the hospital corridor, anxiously checking my nearly empty wallet, the memory of my conversation with Richard came rushing back like a tidal wave. It was as if life had a cruel sense of humor, pushing me into the very situation I had so confidently advised against. I approached my wife, who was resting in her hospital bed, and gently explained our financial predicament. She nodded understandingly, her eyes filled with concern. It was then that I realized the gravity of my own words. I had been quick to offer advice when I hadn't walked in Richard's shoes, and now I was facing the same struggle. Over the next few days, as I scrambled to borrow money from friends and family, I couldn't help but reflect on the profound lesson life had taught me. It was easy to dispense advice from a position of comfort and stability, but it was an entirely different matter to implement that advice when the tables had turned against you. Fortunately, with the support of loved ones, we managed to gather the necessary funds to discharge our baby. The relief that washed over me as I held my newborn in my arms was indescribable, but it was accompanied by a newfound humility and empathy. From that day forward, my mentality changed completely. I realized that it was unfair to judge others' choices and circumstances without understanding the complexities of their lives. I had learned that empathy and compassion were far more valuable than unsolicited advice. Over time, I worked hard to rebuild my financial stability and create a more secure future for my family. And as I did, I made sure to pass on the lessons I had learned to anyone who sought my advice, always with a touch of empathy and understanding. Life had taught me that tables could indeed turn around, and in doing so, it had transformed me into a more compassionate and thoughtful person. I had learned that the best advice often came from those who had weathered life's storms, and I was determined to be a source of support and understanding for others, just as I had needed it myself. We kindly invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification button to receive further updates on our captivating eyewitness stories. Your interest and support are highly valued, and we aim to continue delivering engaging and informative content for your enjoyment.